Hey, it's Sam, and I'm making this video about the current station of Saturn in the sky. Saturn has pretty much slowed down to almost non-existent at this point. He's not moving forward anymore. He's slowing down, about to go retrograde in a few weeks at around 3.5 degrees of Sagittarius. So before he goes retrograde, Saturn always stops immediately in the sky. It's called stationary retrograde. And so if you feel a lot of Saturn energy really kind of concentrating in the world before some things kind of reverse, that's what it is. Anyone who has planets at about 3 degrees of sidereal Sagittarius, around 3 degrees of sidereal Gemini, that would include me, have several planets there including my ascendant, 3 degrees of sidereal Virgo, or 3 degrees of sidereal Aquarius, you're going to especially feel this because that's where Saturn aspects and where Saturn is moving and where he is stationing. Now he's going to turn retrograde and then go back over these early degrees of Sagittarius, then go back into Scorpio, then he'll stationary direct, and then go forward again. So he's going to wind up going back into Scorpio, where he's going to be for a good part of the rest of the year, at least until around September. And right now we're feeling him station in the sky and stop. So what this stationary retrograde Saturn energy means, it's where our recent sort of commitments and things we were moving forward on are kind of uncertain. And we're wondering, is this the way I should be moving forward? Should I be totally focused and committed to this? Or do I need to slow down, introspect, reevaluate my commitments, and get really clear about what's what's internal? And of course, now we're doing it mainly around the Sagittarius theme. Since January 29th, I believe it was, the end of January, Saturn moved into Sagittarius. And at the time, I had said that we were going to be looking more to be inspired for the next several months, off and on for the next several years, because that's the nature of Sagittarius, and we were more looking forward to being committed, which is Saturn, to things that inspire us, Sagittarius, rather than our fears, our imagined fears, which is Scorpio. So with this Saturn stationary and then retrograde, we're about to go back into more of a kind of perhaps fearful mode. And we may see the re-emergence of some of the dark energy that we felt last year, with all of the dark politics last year of fear, and even like some of the intense events we had, like terrorists, some of the terrorist attacks and events. It's been remarkably peaceful for the last couple of months in that regard. Not a whole lot, at least, explosive, acute events. This summer, the spring and summer, is going to be pretty intense, I think. I'll talk more about that, but leading up to an eclipse over the summer. Then we also have some very intense transits of Mars and Jupiter in Libra later in the year, which I'll be talking about. I plan to do an update, a prediction of the rest of 2017 here in the next few weeks. But I wanted to talk about the Saturn stationary direct right now, because this is what's up for us. It's quite an important shift that's going to affect the next several months. At least the next 4 or 5 months, because Saturn will be moving backwards, then he goes into Scorpio, then he stations direct, and then he goes forward and comes back into Sagittarius. But if you're feeling this kind of like feeling like things are kind of stuck or like sort of halted or grinding to a slow halt right now, that's what it is. And it's necessary to really sort of concentrate your energy and say, am I sure that I want to be focused on that? Am I sure that I want to be committed to that? Whatever house you find Sagittarius in, that's the area of life where you're feeling that sort of intensity and that sort of pressure of Saturn. And so that when Saturn stations retrograde or direct, he basically kind of stops at 1 degree for about 6 weeks or something, like 3 or 4, about 4 weeks. And now it's about 3 degrees of Sagittarius, and so that's where he is right now. And I happen to have my ruling planet Mercury 3 degrees Gemini. Venus is like 1 degree Gemini, and my ascendant is like 6. So I have Saturn there, kind of stopping, looking at all of that. And so I'm definitely feeling it in my physical body because I have planets there. And you may be feeling it in other ways. Again, because it's not always the sign, I'm also feeling it in the 7th house of being sort of isolated from relationship and other people, not feeling as social. But also because it's aspecting those planets in my 1st house, like if you have a bunch of planets at 3 degrees of Aquarius, you might be feeling it there even a little bit more. Planets at 3 degrees Virgo, you might be feeling it there, right? So your natal chart will show more of the specifics of how that is playing out in your life. But you want to know that in general, we're all kind of feeling this, feeling a bit like a holding pattern, especially around those things that we were hopeful would shake out. Now we're like, maybe they're not shaking out the way we would have liked. Those plans, those hopeful plans haven't worked out, or they're not working out as well as we had thought or hoped. Having to rethink it, introspect. So the greatness of Saturn is always to bring us in line with our inner life, our internal world, our world of solitude, peace, and stillness. So it's definitely good for that. But you may be processing some sadness and disappointment as well, because Sagittarius is a sign of hope, and maybe some sadness and disappointment in certain areas of life if he's putting that aspect somewhere where you have, like one of these planets that I talked about. This is the process of Saturn. Saturn is here to, in some ways, break our heart. That's what Saturn does. He breaks our heart in that he shows us that, sorry, you're never going to be happy. Aren't I full of joy? No, it's basically that it's kind of to shatter the Venus illusion. Saturn comes after Venus for that reason. Venus is, relationship, people, I'll be happy, even if it's not just with people, but I'll be happy. This world is going to make me happy. All the beauty of the world and the people. Saturn's like, okay, but that's not going to last forever either. Doesn't mean we can't be happy, but we can just feel the kind of sadness and a little bit of grief when Saturn, when he stops in the sky and stations, it like arrests our attention. So again, if you have planets in those areas, you might be feeling it even more. But even just in general, because Saturn was in Sagittarius, which is the sign of hope, Saturn really kind of crushes our hope. And it's supposed to crush our hope, because our hope is usually something of the world, and Saturn crushing our worldly hopes compels us to otherworldly duties and commitments. So that's in the mix for you now. Notice that, and prepare yourself to introspect, embrace solitude, embrace your own stillness and your own salvation. That's what Saturn brings, and when he stations, the energy becomes very concentrated, but sometimes it's hard to sit with it. and we want to run to something external to distract us from the pressure.